go go ahead with our housekeeping stuff first. Just some messages from the Choral Foundation and Institute for Healthy Singing. So we're gonna start with that here real quick.
Good evening. This is William Baker, and on behalf of the entire Choral Foundation family, I want to thank you for being a part of our summer masterclasses through the Institute for Healthy Singing. I want to thank Jamia Sale and our entire faculty for their excellent work in assembling these interesting and exciting programs. The Choral Foundation is here to serve you through elite ensembles like the William Baker Festival Singers and the New South Festival Singers, specialty ensembles like Kansas City Bronze and Zimria Festivali Atlanta, our summer groups in Cobb County and Atlanta and Kansas City and in Lee Summit, and educational programs like the Institute for Healthy Singing, the Institute for Choral Creativity, our Choral Scholars Program, the Sullivan Choral Library, and Choral Conversations. During these difficult times, great music, music of timeless beauty and worth, helps us keep our spirits up and helps us look toward a brighter and better future. Thank you for being a part of our summer program, and please remember to contact us at festivalsingers.org or at mail@festivalsingers.org if we can serve you in any way. God bless.
Okay. And I apologize if you can still hear the doorbells ringing of people coming in. I didn't think about that quite. If you can hear the doorbells ringing of everyone coming in, I apologize. Let's see if there's a way to. Emily, do you know if there's a way to take that off?
Yeah, if you are doing it, because I've muted myself, if you hit more with the little caret, one of the options is to uncheck play, enter, exit, chime. So I think that should do it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, you are in the Alto Nation breakout session. I love calling it the Alto Nation. We are proud altos, so hopefully you are in the right place. If you are not, you might refer back to your email or maybe put in the chat. We can get you in the right spot if there's some other place that you need to go. My name is Jennifer Lahasky, and I am the assistant director for the Lee Summit Summer Singers with the Choral Foundation. I'm the alto section leader for the William Baker Festival Singers of Kansas City, and I'm going into my 9th year of teaching music and choir. I teach mostly middle school voices, but I've also worked with various ages, and I am also going to be a mom at the end of October for the first time, so that's very exciting. But so that's just a little bit about me. Emily Fish, say hi, Emily.
Hi.
Where do you tell them where you work, Emily?
I'm lucky enough to teach next to Jenny in Leawood Elementary School in the Blue Valley School District.
So Emily is she's going to be letting people in, and she's our kind of chat mediator. So if you have a question or need help with anything, she's your girl. And she's one of my alto sisters as well in the Festival Singers. So thanks, Emily, for being a co-host tonight. Couple of things. Really, the only thing you need is we're going to use the song Pilgrim's Hymn. We're going to use another piece, but I'm just going to share that through my screen. So the only piece that you might have in front of you is the Pilgrim's Hymn. It's just the first 2 pages I think we'll be kind of using. And then if you want to have the handout in front of you, that's great. Or you can wait and go into the Institute for Healthy Singing webpage afterwards and print that handout. So let's get started. I'm really going to try to keep us in time as much as I can tonight. So I have, first off, I'm going to start by sharing a little image with you, and I'll give you a few minutes to kind of read through it here before we get started. So let me see here. Okay. So this is kind of a humorous image. It says top 10 reasons for being an alto. And if you look at these sentences, you might find yourself kind of giggling at some of them. You might find yourself relating to many of these sentences. I think one of the funny ones I like is if the choir is rough, it's unlikely the altos will be blamed. But maybe in the chat, if you want to, you can always put which sentence number you feel like you relate to the most, why you love being an alto, if there is one. I have many, but you can always put in the chat which number you like the most or which one you think is the funniest. But this is just humorous. But as I was reading through these images, there was a few of them that I really felt these are common things that altos run into when we are singing our part. And so I took a few of these sentences and I created our session to kind of focus around some of these. So I'm calling this 2 truths and a lie. If you've ever played the game 2 truths and a lie, this is how the game works. So someone says 3 sentences about themselves, tells you 3 things about themselves, and 2 of them are true and 1 of them has to be something not true. And then it's up to the other people to figure out what 2 things are true and what's the lie. So tonight's breakout session, we're calling it 2 truths and a lie, and we're kind of using these 3 bullet points here. And maybe you can kind of figure out already which one is the lie, what are the 2 truths in just these 3 statements. And so that's kind of these are the things we're going to focus on here. So we're going to start with the lie first. We're just kind of come right out and say it. This is the lie. So you don't really need to warm up to sing the same note. Hopefully you all knew that was the lie. No matter, it's always important to warm up your voice and to use exercises that are going to take our voice all the way through our range, low to high to middle, no matter what repertoire we might be singing with our ensemble. I can think of many pieces where maybe we're only singing F sharps and G's and A's throughout the entire song, but doesn't mean that we should not neglect those lower notes and those higher notes as well. So I encourage you to train like an athlete. And what I mean by that is if you think about how an athlete will condition their entire body, a pitcher does not, just do bicep workouts and that's it. Or a soccer player does not just work out their legs. They're constantly working their entire body because they know that that's going to help them in all over be the best athlete they can be. So what I mean by that is, really work when you're doing exercises. We're going to talk about working the low, the middle, the high range, all the way through. And it's important to get to know your muscles. So here in a minute, we're going to learn about two of our singing muscles and what kind of physiologically is happening when you're singing low and high in your alto range. So we have the cricothyroid muscle and the thyroid arytenoid muscle. Don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz at the end of this. You will not have to pronounce these words or really remember them. That's all in the handout. So you can call them the CT and the TA muscles if you want. So the TA, or what we call our thickening or shortener muscles, those are what we use as we are singing lower pitches. So we all know, or we know that lower pitches are going to equal slower vibrations with our vocal folds. And so that's going to cause the folds to be shorter and thicker. And this picture, if just in case to clarify, this is like if you were looking at the top, through the top of your head on top of your vocal folds and then the larynx, this is kind of the view that you're getting. So these are the vocal folds, and then the arrows are showing that the thyroarytenoid muscles are going to shorten as we sing our lower notes. The other muscle is our CT, stretching muscles or lengtheners. So the higher we sing, that requires faster vibrations with our folds. Here's these folds. And so they are going to stretch and get long and thin the higher that we sing. And so this little very quick video kind of shows the two muscles, kind of gives you an idea of the two muscles working at different times to either sing low or sing high. Nope. Play. There we go. So those are the shorteners, the lower pitches. There's the stretchiers, the lengtheners. So that just kind of shows how the two muscles work as you're singing low to high. And then I will say that these two muscles they're antagonistic. They're opposing one another. So when one is doing its job, then the other one is not. And then they have to have this trade-off. If you're going to sing higher or lower, whichever one you switch to, they have this trade-off that occurs. And so that can sometimes cause some challenges as we're singing low to high, and we'll get back into that here in a little bit. So some exercises. If you were in the session one with Jamia and Christine, they really talked about the process of warming up your voice, starting with your lower register first, then working your middle, and then finally opening up your top voice. So some of the things I like to do, and this is where we're going to start getting our voices going here. One of the things I like to do to really kind of just discover and help myself feel where those different ranges and those registers are is I like to start with like a sigh through my passaggio. So the passaggio is where your voice transitions from kind of your lower, you can kind of feel where your voice has to move, shift from the lower chest voice into the middle range, and then shifts again into a higher range. But I like to do sighs. And we're going to start with a sigh from our upper voice and then all the way down through your mid to low. And then the whole idea is to make it one continuous sound. And just notice if you feel where those different transitions might happen. So it just, as comfortable as you could, you would start and going until as low as you comfortably can go. So try that a few times and see if you can notice where your voice registers start to shift over. So again, you could start a little higher. And then I do the lower to the higher upper range the second time. This one is always, I feel, going from low to high is the trickier one. I feel like you end up feeling more of the shift, or you might feel a certain break in between the low to mid to high. So just try that a couple of times and try to go as slow as possible. So you would start as low as you can, and maybe you can do I do little finger spins. And so hopefully you can feel kind of where you have to move. So I like starting out with kind of the size throughout my passaggio and seeing how smooth I can make those transitions. I'm using a lot of the warm-ups that Jamia and Christine talked through in the first session. So if you have, you can use those. I also put them in the handout, the ones that I kind of like to use. So just the lower voice one that I really like is the lip trill. And I just keep going lower and lower. I'm not going to spend too much time on warm-ups because I want to have us get to the singing stuff. So if you feel like I'm moving too quickly through this, just bear with me, because I do want to make sure, I want to keep us on time and make sure we have time to sing through some other things later on. The middle range, I like using an E vowel, and I like to ascend up the fifth and back down. So very slowly again. And then I try to get that bright resonance. So that's one I like to use for the mid voice warm up. And then my favorite for the upper voice, we'll kind of do this. So if you find like a good place to either sit up tall, or if you want to stand, that's fine. This is the ha 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 one. So if you were at the first session, Christine Freeman, with this, she added a little bend at the waist on this, but it's just the three do mi so ha 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 ha. So she does this, like, I'm gonna do it kind of sitting in my chair because I have the sun behind me, but she does a little bend at the waist on the top note. So she goes ha 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 ha. And I like this one because you can use lots of the H's. You can let your jaw just be nice and loose. You can bend your knees. But that's one of my favorite ones to use to warm up my upper range. So those are just some ideas. But definitely don't skip the warm-ups. Even if you know you're singing 3 or 2 notes in your concert rep or whatever you're getting ready to sing, don't skip them. Warm up your entire range. So on to one of our truths. So you get really good at singing the same note for 12 consecutive bars. And maybe not 12 consecutive bars, but we definitely can look at pieces of music and know that we are singing the same note very often in certain alto parts. And yes, we can do this. We can get really good at this, but we have to remember that healthy singing is going to play an important role. So I'm using the Pilgrim's Hymn, the first page. As you can see, I've kind of outlined here in red that we are singing lots of F sharps in this piece, even as we begin. And I want you to consider the outcome if you were to go into this part singing it and just letting it become lethargic. What would be some possible, results of that? What might occur? You might find that you drop in pitch. There might be a misplacement of tone, so your tone could fall back you could kind of swallow your tone or have a kind of covered tone, or you could start to push this F sharp. I don't know about you, but I can sing an F sharp with my chest voice pretty well, but if I were to do that throughout an entire piece, I'm gonna get kind of tired. So you could start kind of feeling yourself push. Your consonants could become slower. Your phrasing and your words could start to like what we call plod along. Those are all things that if we're not kind of taking care of, even when we're singing the same note over and over again, this is something that might happen. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to just sing the first kind of page over into kind of the last two notes of the second page. And if you know it, great, you can sing it along with me. To start, we'll do that a couple of times, and then we're going to add in some of these bullet points here that might help you just to maintain that good singing technique when you come across something like this. So here's our F sharp. So our alto line goes, even before we call on your name to ask you, O God, when we seek for the words to glorify, you hear our prayer. And that's as much as we'll do with that. So we'll try it one more time. And maybe two more times just to get used to it. If you don't want to sing it with words, you're more than welcome. You can hum it. You can do it. If this is newer, do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. Here's the F sharp again. 1, 2, ready, and even before we call on your name to ask you, O God, when we seek for the words to glorify you, you hear our prayer. Awesome. We'll try it one more time just for good measure, for if someone is just learning this tonight. Do it one more time and then we'll add in some things. Is there F sharp? Here we go, one last time. 1, 2, ready, and even before we call on your name to ask you, O God, when we seek for the words to glorify you, you hear our prayer. Okay, so some things that can help us to sing this with good energy and to keep our forward placement forward and things. We're going to start with maintaining the energy in our breath. I don't know about you, but right now, being 6 months pregnant, it's hard for me to get a good breath sometimes, and it's kind of tricky. So we want to think about keeping our air moving throughout the phrase. So we're going to use a plosive. We're going to use T, but we're not going to make it staccato. we're going to continue our air as we practice the rhythm, just the rhythm. And so we'll say the T and we're going to connect the breath through that phrase. So it would go. Honestly, it kind of sounds like a train when it's slowing down, or the steam's kind of getting going, is what it reminds me of. But just try that and see if, think about just keeping your air moving throughout that entire phrase as you're going, but still making the T sound happen on any new word or new note. Okay, so try that one more time. Ready? And okay, so I just kind of went through that first page. So that's something you can do, and then you can go back and sing it and see if, so try singing it and see if your air starts connecting throughout the words. Let's just do, we're gonna stop at measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll stop at measure 6, but see if you can go back now and kind of imagine that air carrying through and thinking about it going forward out in front of you instead of just staying put. So starting here, 1, 2, ready, and even before we call on your name, to ask you, oh God. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind with your breath. The placement, keeping the placement forward. I like to sing on NGs and Ns and Ms to kind of get the buzziness going in my nose. But we're gonna also, something that is good and helpful, I think, is to experiment with what too much forward sound might be like and what too much of a back or swallowed sound might be like. So because we're all on mute, this is kind of nice. I'm the only one that's gonna kind of make myself look silly here, because you can hear me, but you don't have to worry about anybody else hearing you. We're gonna sing with a super nasally, overly done forward sound. So you might have to scrunch your nose. I mean, it is the snottiest sound you've ever done, but I want you to sing this just maybe till measure 6 and try singing it super, super forward, like over exaggerated. Okay, so here we go. Like, like there, ready, and even before we call on your name, to ask you, oh God. Ooh, that's fun. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna go the complete opposite, and we're gonna let our placement kind of go back in our throat. Oh, before we call. And I'm gonna try my best to do this here, but again, see if you can let your, like, purposely let your sound go back in your throat. I'll do it. I'll do my best here. Here we go. Ready, and even before we call on your name, to ask you, oh God. Okay, so you kind of felt the difference between what is too forward, what's too far back. So now go back and see if you can find that happy medium. just forward placement. If you want to try it on an NG or an M or an N, that'll help you get started. I'm going to sing it on an NG. So if you want to try that, go for it. Or if you want to try it with the words. But now see if you can find that middle, nice, resonant spot without it being too far forward. Here we go. I'm going to NG. 1, 2, ready, and. Okay, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Long vowels, quick consonants, that really helps us with just the clarity of the text. It helps us keep our energy moving. One thing that I really like to use for that is, you know, you've probably done the one where you take out consonants and you just sing on the vowel one time. One thing I like is the clothespin idea. So going back to when, you know, before washers and dryers, and you had your clothes hanging out on the line outside. I don't really know what that might have looked like. I'm sorry, I'm too young. But I know what they looked like. So if you think about the vowels being this long clothesline and the consonants are these clothespins that you're putting out on the line. So we're going to sing the text and you're literally going to clothespin the consonants anytime you have them onto the line, so that we're not holding them out, we're not dragging them, we're not making them super long or getting in the way of the vowels. Okay, so here we go. We're going to put the clothes out on the line. Ready, and even before we call on your name to ask you, oh God. Yeah, so that's the clothespin idea for helping with long vowels, quick consonants. And then the last one, I won't have you do this. We'll kind of move on to the next thing, but is thinking about that long connected phrase. I like to do, some things I'll do is speaking the phrase and giving inflection to maybe which words are more important. You can draw an arrow with your finger over the whole phrase. So if you do the second line, when we seek for the words, drawing an arrow all the way through, or you can even, you know, paint. Pretend like you're painting smooth, pretty Bob Ross brush strokes all over a canvas as you're singing through the phrase. Okay. All right, moving on to our other truth here. Altos get all the great intervals. I do believe this. They are so fun. Sometimes we are singing low A's and then we have to jump up a major sixth, the minor seventh, and back down to back down another minor sixth or whatever. But they're great. That's why we love them, and that's one of the beauties of singing the alto part. So I do think we do get some great intervals, but they can be challenging. And one of the reasons why they're challenging, we're going to kind of think back to those CT and TA muscles, our lengtheners and our shorteners. I said that they naturally oppose one another. So if we are singing and we have to quickly jump from a low note to a higher register or back down, sometimes that can feel like there's an unbalanced trade-off. And so what might occur is you might have a voice break, you might have a crack. You may feel like if you were singing low and then all of a sudden you have to jump up to your mid-range, that your mid-range doesn't feel as strong as those low notes. And that all does have kind of, that brings the muscles, the CT and TA muscles into play. So there are some things that you can do to kind of help with the flexibility of those and to get more of a balance between those handoffs from the CT and TA muscles. The first thing that I like doing is I just like doing scales and singing the interval. So I'll sing do, re, do, mi, do, fa, do, so, do, and I'll keep going up the octave. And we can try this one time here if you want to sing that with me. A lot of times I'll use opposing hand movements, so I'll kind of like turn something over. But the idea is that I'm keeping both my low note and that higher note in the same, we call it character or flavor. So start where you want to end up. So we'll start again. There's our middle C there. So we'll just jump the intervals here. And if you want to, you can turn something over as you're singing. Here we go. So do, re, do, mi, do, fa, do, so, do, la, ti, do. And so probably the trickiest part of that is not dumping into the low do note as you keep coming down. And then where you would do it the opposite way. So you could start do, ti, do, la, do, so, do, fa, do, mi, re, do. And that's kind of tricky too, because then, you know, it's like you trying to keep from scooping up to the top sound, or sitting into the lower one. So the scales and the opposing movements, I like to kind of help with shifting between those changes, the lower and the higher ones. There's a handout, or in the handout, there's a warm up in both the session one and this one. It's called You Ah. And it's definitely a doozy to practice, but it will help you with that flexibility. So it starts, let's see. So it starts kind of low, B flat, and it goes, you are, all the way through your low to mid to high. I'll sing it again. So it goes, you are, and I like to, again, I like to make circles. I like to stir the bowl. If you want to stand up and like, you can kind of move your arms or pump your arms or bend your knees while you're singing higher. Any sort of downward motion as you're singing up, I think helps you to lighten and maybe release some tightness that you might feel happening, or some of that like, oh gosh, it's going higher, it's going higher. So that you ah is definitely a good exercise for the flexibility in the all the way through your range. The second song we're going to learn, I'm going to switch over to this so that you can see it on my screen here. And here we go. Let's see. Maybe if I can. Let me find it. Get that out of the way. Okay, so we're using, this is a song called Ballad to the Moon, and it's by a young composer named Daniel Elder. And if you have never done this piece, I encourage you to look it up and listen to it. I'm pretty sure there's a William Baker Festival Singer recording of it on one of our albums. But it's a gorgeous piece, Ballad to the Moon, by Daniel Elder. So if you've never sang it before, look it up, listen to it, and maybe the next time you're able to sing with your ensemble, put that out there to your director or whoever, because it's a really pretty piece. But we're gonna look at the alto part. Does that look pretty good? Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay. So here we've got our low B's at With Midnight Darkness Beckoning. But then if we notice down here, we kind of have a jump from the F sharp up to the B. That's a little tricky. And then here, this is the fun part. We go from a B up to our G and A, down to a low A, all over our low and mid range. It's just fun. And it really is. It's so fun to sing, not gonna lie. But it can be tricky. So I'm going to sing this a few times because I know this probably isn't as well known as the other one was. So I'm going to sing this a few times, and if you want to loo it or dot it, however you want, and we'll go from there. So we're going to start it With Midnight. Here's our B natural, and it goes, with midnight darkness beckoning, my heart toward mystic fantasy, come and dream, come and dream in me. So fun little pretty line, but it's kind of tricky with the low B up to the G and the A there, especially. So let's try that a few more times. Emily, is that looking okay? Okay, I'm just making sure. All right. Here we go. 1 and 2 and with midnight darkness beckoning, my heart toward mystic fantasy, come and dream, come and dream in me. And we'll do it one more time just for good measure. Third time's the charm. Here we go. 1 and 2 and with midnight darkness beckoning, my heart toward mystic fantasy, come and dream, come and dream in me. Okay, so I think the biggest part that I want to focus on with this is just that here at measure 17, the common dream, that little jump there. So kind of the hardest thing would be is not starting in that lower register and kind of really dumping and then trying to jump up into the mid register. And you can try it one time. I always encourage you to try it, or I encourage my singers to try it the wrong way once, just to see what it feels like. So then you can go, oh yeah, I definitely know, like I shouldn't be going, come and dream, come, as an over exaggeration. But if you do it once, then you can know to avoid it. And it definitely helps you to sing lighter. So we're going to think about the vowels. If you attended Andrew's session last week, he did a great job talking about pure vowels. And the thing that I want to mostly focus on is hand. I like using hand position. So the vowel for come, I'm gonna do like more of an ah vowel instead of, because I don't want to sing come. You know, that's not gonna help me get up to the G and the A, and it's not gonna make a lovely, pretty sound. So I oftentimes will hold. I like to hold my hand just slightly up by my cheek, right here, in kind of an upside down U here. Um, and then the other is dream and me, is that E sound. And so that's going to be our kind of puckered, kissy lips, and forefinger, or your pointer finger and your thumb, I put it kind of right here in my corners in. So as I'm singing, as we're singing, we're going to just kind of, I'm going to slowly move my hand up on come and dream, come and dream in me. Because I'm wanting to ensure that my, especially the come vowel, does not change as I jump up to my mid range. So try that and see. Again, just do those little motions as you're doing. So ka and e. Here we go. We're going to start at measure 17. Ready, and come and dream, come and dream in me. Yeah. Now we're going to go back again. We're going to go up to the top here and think about some of the things that we talked about in the previous slide with singing the same note over and over again. So putting into play, just kind of thinking about our energy and our breath. And then when we get down to the come and dream with me, then kind of thinking about those pure vowels. So put some of the stuff that we talked about in the second to last slide here and see if you can put it all together, or try a couple of different things that we might have talked about. So here we go with midnight darkness. 1 and 2 and 3. With midnight darkness beckoning my heart toward mystic fantasy, come and dream, come and dream in me. Yeah. So those are some things, just some things I think that help, especially when you're transitioning through a large interval. Let's see. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back. Okay. So that kind of concludes the singing and trying out portion of things. So I am happy to start taking any questions that you may have, or thoughts that you may want to put in the chat. They can be about anything. Let's see. Did people put, I think, oh, love number 2, number 5. I have to go back and see all the numbers. I forget which numbers are which from the image. Number 4, you can sometimes find part-time work singing tenors. Heck yeah. Any questions I can answer about the alto voice? How do you control too much vibrato as you age? That's a really good question. Um, I think part of the vibrato as we age that can sometimes naturally occur. Um, I think it comes down to being aware of your air as you are singing. Um, and some of it is just unfortunately as we age that becomes something that is harder for us to maneuver. But I think it does come down to your breath and your air. So thinking if it's too much, if you feel like you're having too much vibrato, think about if you're over hyperextending or trying to use too much air as you're singing, pushing, straining. If you feel like if it's not enough vibrato and it's kind of what we might call a wobble, maybe we're lacking some air somewhere. Let's see. Sinus drainage is a killer. Any hints to clearing it? Ah, the darn sinus drainage never leaves. Lots and lots of water. Like over, you have to hydrate. And when I say hydrate, I think Jamia talked about this in session 1, but you have to start ahead of time. So not waiting until like 30 minutes before you're going to sing. You have to hydrate all day long, and that really helps to clear some of that. I know that some people like to use the nasal rinses, if you can do that and do it without hurting yourself, or if you can handle that sort of thing and having the water go through your nasal passage, try it. I know Jamia, our Institute of Healthy Singing, really likes that as well. I'm trying to think of Emily. Do you have any other sinus drainage? My biggest one is making sure I'm drinking lots of water when I have sinus drainage.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a lot of allergies. That's where all of my sinus issues come from. So I know if I know it's allergy season, I just take Zyrtec and Benadryl, and then make sure I hydrate even more, because those can kind of dry everything out. So
Yeah. Um, I also sometimes, actually, Jamia Sale taught me this. She does like this little massage thing, where if she feels like she's dealing with sinus drainage, she'll kind of start. You can start up here and massage. I mean, you get sinus, your nasal passage and all this kind of stuff. When you get stuff up, it's everywhere. So she'll kind of do this with your forehead, and then she'll go across your nasal passage here, and then you can even massage, because you have this is where you kind of feel, sometimes you feel like you have swollen glands or something. You can massage those. And so if doing that massage, you might find then that it loosens things up a little bit. So I like that too. Started life as a soprano, transitioned to alto in my old age. My voice barely breaks. Middle C, good. If I have to start on a C, it never turns out well. What's the remedy? So starting on a middle C, if I have to start on a middle C, but voice is breaking, never turns out well. I would say to think about your onset. Are you starting, with air? I'm trying to think of an example I can give, but I like to start with a lot of kind of H in front of some of my singing when I start. So for example, on Pilgrim's Hymn, if I was singing a middle C and I had the word when, I usually put a lot of H and air in front of that. When we seek. I try to put air in front of that. Let's see. Also, never turns out. Yeah, I think it's kind of about your onset, and not trying. And I wouldn't try to attack it. If it's not going to come out, I wouldn't force it. So maybe just letting that note, if you're with other people and singing with other people, maybe let those people sing that C, and then come in on the, if you can come in a moment later, that's okay. Yeah. Any special ideas for a soprano singing alto, how to reach the lower notes? Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes there's a lot of sopranos that eventually become altos or vice versa. I think it comes with conditioning, especially reaching the lower notes. Again, not trying to, if you have to go down to a lower note, not dumping into it, or feeling like you have to push or strain. And it comes, I think it's all part of that conditioning. So when you're doing exercises, start where is comfortable. I usually start on like an A or a G above middle C, and then I work my way lower and lower. But if it's not coming out, if it's kind of sounding like bacon frying in a pan at some point or gravel, then I would stop. There's no point in forcing it. If you force it, then it's going to do you more harm than good. But yeah, just not forcing it, singing it nice and light. Think light as a feather, soft. An opera singer once told me that to reach the highest register to sing through your rear end, is there anything that truly helps? Oh my gosh, that's funny. It makes me think of, if anybody's ever seen the Kristen Chenoweth video, there's a song that she once sang called Sing From Your Hoo-Ha. If it's really funny, look it up if you ever have a chance, because it's hilarious. But it's kind of, I think it's true, because when you're singing and you're thinking, especially as we are singing higher, and if we're not as comfortable with our higher range, as we're working on expanding that, it's all about kind of, I think about singing from the lowest, like my pelvic bone. I really do. I think about my sound, my air coming from like below my belly button. And that comes with our breath. We talk about having that low breath. I do lots of like knee bends. I move my body. I do opposing gestures oftentimes when I'm practicing singing higher. So if I have to sing high, I'll kind of release my arms down. Let's see. Anything else to help with that? Just relaxing. Any sort of motions. We do a lot of movement when we warm up in festival singers. Let's see. Yeah, lots of air. It's all about the air and going for it, I think sometimes. But again, if you feel like you're straining, if you feel like you're pushing, then back off. Only do what's comfortable. And it takes time to condition your higher register and your lower notes. So, any other questions? Sometimes thinking too much hurts too. Yes. Yeah, definitely, Amy. Just don't think about it. Just relax. Lots of movement. Have fun with it. But sometimes I'll massage my jaw as I'm singing higher, because I know I can tend to let my throat get a little tense. My jaw will start to tighten. So if I'm singing higher, I'll kind of just remind myself like, ah, ah. I'll stick my tongue out. Ah. You look silly, but it helps. Other thoughts? Sometimes when we are singing the alto part on hymns and are stuck on E flat and D for a long time, hurts my throat. Am I pressing too hard? That is a possibility. That if you, like we talked about, if we are singing an E flat and D for a long, long, long time, if we're not conscious of the energy and the air that we're using, especially for hymns, if you're very familiar with that hymn and you've sung it a lot, you might just kind of go on autopilot and just kind of sing. But it may not, after a while you might start realizing that, oh, I'm a little tired. So I would say if it starts to feel uncomfortable, if it starts to feel fatigue, you might check into those things. How's my breath? How's my energy? Um, how's my placement? Am I singing from more of a chesty place, or am I singing from a more resonant forward placement? So, and that's tough. I'm right there with you. I know what it means to sing D's and E flats for a long time. Good. Well, I hope, yeah, I'm glad to see that you enjoyed tonight. And gosh, my love to my altos. We rock, ladies. So, yeah. If there's any other questions, I put my email on the handout, so feel free to email me. But thank you so much for coming. And next week is going to be it's with me and Andrew again. So it's artistry, all about artistry in text in the music. So I'm looking forward to it. But thank you all so much, altos. Go out and be awesome, altos. Bye, guys.